Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Between the Ears. Merry Christmas, everyone. We're going to talk some recruiting here today, mainly about the transfer portal. And as always, this episode is brought to you by West Virginia on SI. I'm Schuyler, Callihan. That's legendary West Virginia running back Eugene, Napoleon. Gene, we haven't talked about the portal here specifically on this show, but we've talked about it a ton over on the site. There's a lot of movement there. 15 scholarship players from West Virginia's 24 roster have entered the portal. A couple have already found new homes. There's been a couple of surprises. We already knew that this was going to happen regardless of a coaching change with the NCAA roster limit set to come in place next spring. But again, a few big surprises. There may be some more on the way. A couple of the big names out there: Josiah Trotter, Trey Lathan, Traylon Ray, Hudson Clement. Which names do you feel like have been either the biggest surprises or what could end up being some of the biggest losses for West Virginia if they do indeed move on?
Well, think about it this way. All of those players that you just mentioned are impact players.
Yeah.
Um, you know, CJ Donaldson, for instance, like I noticed
Yes.
that he was in the portal. I was like, wow, Trotter was big on defense, all those guys, because again, they all had an impactful role this past season. Moving forward, I would have loved to have seen what those players would have done in both a Rich Rodriguez offense and defense because of that attacking defensive style that he brings to the table.
Sure.
Um, I say this because of the landscape of what this particular the new wave of how college football is being rendered almost helpless to a certain extent when it comes to trying to figure out the transfer portal and all of this stuff. I'm not surprised. I think this is going to be, and this is the direction that college football has taken over the last few short years. So the transfer portal giveth and the transfer portal taketh away. What I'm hopeful for is that West Virginia can get more back than what they've lost in key positions, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
The one thing that I made sure to note, and I did an article on this. If you want to check out the whole thing, go to our website. But in the 2 years that Jack State was an FBS program under Rich Rodriguez, right? Um, Most of the transfers that they landed in the portal happened in the springtime after the new year started. For example, um, let's see, in 2023, they landed 7 players in total, 6 of which came after the new year. 3 of them came from Power Four schools. And then last year, they landed 19 kids out of the portal, 17 of which came after the new year. So it's not surprising. West Virginia has 2 commits at the time of this taping. There may be 1 or 2 that end up happening the minute after we record this. But so far, you have Scruggs, the South Alabama cornerback, and then Orrin. Singleton from Eastern Michigan, the wide receiver. So 2 right now. We're a week away from the new year starting. And of course, when you don't have a staff in place, that kind of keeps them things in flux, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Well, I notice a lot of programs around the country that's going through the same thing when it comes to coaching changes and all that stuff. And yeah, that does somewhat hurt what you can do depending on who you have evaluating the talent if you don't have your full staff, in tow. So that can be problematic, but then again, it depends. It depends on your system. Like Rich, typically, as he's done at Jack State, you have the majority of your portal kids coming in the spring anyway. So if that's the case, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to hurt him that much now with not having all of his coaches, in place. It just means that that's systematically how, what he feels more comfortable doing. And maybe to him, it gives you more time to evaluate what's in the portal because you're truly taking your time and you're not rushing.
Yeah, and when you come to a new job, that's the first thing you have to do is you actually got to figure out what you have and what you don't have. And it might take a little bit longer than maybe in the past because it felt like you had a little bit more breathing room before you started to really add transfers and you even bring in the high school class, which used to be in February. Now the February signing period is just kind of like an afterthought. It's the guys that really either want to draw things out and create drama, or it's just the guys that are still looking for homes that didn't have an opportunity to sign in December. So I feel like right now it feels like it's in a bit of a lull, and West Virginia fans are getting frustrated because they're seeing transfers fly off the board. But first and foremost, you have to know what you have and what you don't, And I feel like you want your coordinators to be a part of that evaluation process as well, right? Because they're guys that's going to be, you know, calling the shots, so to speak. Maybe not offensively, because that'll probably be Rich's forte, but defensively, at least, you got to know who your DC is going to be. You got to know who your position coaches are going to be, and those guys have to have a say too into the players that they're going to be coaching. So when you don't have that in place, it's kind of hard to really figure out what you really need and what kind of players you're going to target in the portal. And that's an approach that Rich has been successful with over the last 2 years. Last year, they had how many new kids at Jack State in the summer? I mean, it was an incredible amount. And they got
60,
off to this, yeah,
60.
yeah, and they got off to the slow start, but they won a bunch of games down the stretch. They won the Conference USA title game. He's been in this situation before. So I don't think it's time to hit the panic button just yet. But getting the staff in place is key. They've got to get that done. I would say potentially within the next 5 to 7 days. Anything past that, it's really drawing things out and delaying things in terms of recruiting out of the portal. So, of those big name players that have entered the portal, Josiah Trotter's off the board. He's gone to Missouri, but all the others are still in there. Actually, I lied for just a second. Day Farmers at UCF. But of those other guys that are still in the portal, some of them could come back. Just because they're in the
Right.
portal doesn't mean they're gone forever. Like there's a chance that maybe they just want to go in there and see what their value is, come back to WVU and say, hey, this is what I'm hearing that I'm worth. Can you guys give me that and I'll stay here? That's very much the possibility. And actually a few of the guys, I know that's the case. So of the players that are in the portal, who would you like to see West Virginia retain? The
Listen, Hudson
most, I should
Clement.
say.
Yeah, Hudson Clement is serious. Um, I personally think when you talk about hard edge, he's that type of player. He's going to play through. He's going to run through a brick wall for you. I would love to see, and it seems to me, to your point, a lot of these players might be looking at their financial evaluation elsewhere to see, at least bring something back to the table to say, hey, you know what, WVU, here's where I'm at, here's what I've been offered. What say you in terms of me coming back here? Traylon Ray is interesting to me. I think his upside is tremendous. I think he is the type of kid that can really make your offense go. And he was just coming into his own before the injury.
Yep.
I also think, I don't know if people really understand the importance of CJ. I would love to see him in a Rich Rod style offense, um, along with Jaheim White, because that type of 1-2 punch in his style of offense can be really, really interesting. So if I'm him, I would love to see him at least take a peek back at West Virginia because he fits that offense well, in my humble opinion. The rest of the guys, they have to find a fit that makes sense for them. But I wouldn't be too hasty in making decisions until I get a a financial evaluation someplace else. I would definitely, if I'm representing any of them, I would definitely use that to come back to sit down with Rich and the staff and say, look, here's what this place offered me. This is the nature of the game right now. Everybody knows that. I would love to stay. What say you with these particular numbers? Do you want to match it? Or I think that would be the appropriate way to handle it. But those other three that I just named, Ray, CJ, Hudson Clement, those three for me, I think would be the ones that I would really try to target to get back in a West Virginia uniform, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, Hudson Clement is a game changer. I mean, we saw it obviously in the bowl game. I mean, he just went off against Memphis, and it's clear that they need some players at that position. Even though Rich Rod's probably going to be a run heavy offense, you still need to be able to spin it a little bit, and it makes sense for a
Absolutely.
West Virginia kid to want to stick around. So we'll see what happens there. But Gene, again, here it is. It's that time of year, breaking news, right? As I said just a couple of minutes ago, they only had two commits. Well, now we can bump that up to three. as West Virginia has landed a transfer out of the portal. Tulsa offensive lineman. Get this name, you're going to love it. Walter Young Bear is his name. Offensive lineman coming in. He has 1 year of eligibility remaining. He was third team All AAC this past year's an interior guy. So huge pickup for West Virginia. They have lost. That's a very key part. Maybe this is perfect setting it up for us here because West Virginia's lost 7 of their top offensive linemen due to either graduation or the portal. Tomas Remack goes to the portal. They lose Wyatt Milam, Nick Malone, Jaquay Hubbard, Brandon Yates, all to the NFL or to the next level. Sullivan Weedman, Johnny Williams, they also entered the portal. So this is going to be the start of what we would expect, probably a lot of different guys being populating that offensive line room out of the transfer portal.
Let me tell you something. Again, the way Rich runs his offense, you are going to need a particular style of lineman that's going to be in the best shape of his life. He's going to have to be to run this up-tempo style that Rich loves to run. So it's not going to be surprising to me that when they go in the portal or when they recruit young people at that position, at the center, guard, tackle, it's a certain type that they're looking for to run this particular offense. So that's not going to change because that's the style of offense that he likes to run. This is a big pickup. Whenever you get a lineman, because that means they're evaluating that young man based on what his film says, which means he must have a high motor. He must, yeah, you know what I mean? So you kind of know specifically what you're looking at when you're looking at bringing in a lineman, center, guard, tackle. There's a particular type that you need to recruit, and that's what they're going to go in the portal and get. So I'm excited about that part of it because that process is one that they're very familiar with.
Biggest needs for West Virginia in the transfer portal as we wrap things up here on this episode of BTE. But I mean, I guess we could just be honest and say, well, I mean, you probably need one of everything, right? Or two of everything at this point. But what are the key parts of this team that you really feel like Rich needs to dabble into the portal and say this has got to be our things that we're going to build with right now?
Quarterback, offensive line, you got to have it. I think as long as we keep the running back that we have there now and build around him with 1 or 2 more, that's going to be important. Receivers that really understand being able to block in the run game is very important because of this style of offense, because it is so run-centered. Not to say that we don't need receivers that can blow the top off the defense, because obviously you do. So that's that. Defense side of the ball, lockdown corners. Safeties that really understand run fits in the run game. And you need some studs up front. So linebackers that are going to bring it with some thump to it. So as you said, it's almost like you kind of need 1 or 2 of everything if you're going to be successful. But offensively, quarterback, offensive line. You know, to make your offense run the way you need it to run, you got to have those 2, and you got to have a stud running back that's going to be able to tote that bell cow about 25 times a game comfortably.
But just like you guys did back in the old day when running backs would get 60 carries in a game and they'd say, yeah, give me 61. I'm not tired yet. So
Absolutely.
But yeah, I agree with you. Again, I've said this multiple times with the quarterback situation. I'm not saying Nico Markiel can't get the job done, but you have to press him. You have to give him some competition. Rich isn't going to come in here and just say, yeah, Nico's the guy. He may think that's the case. He may believe he's going to end up being the guy, but you have to infuse some competition into that room. I don't know that Khalil Wilkins is to the point yet that he's ready to push for a starting job. So you at least want to have another veteran in that room just in case. Hey, even if Nico is the guy and he gets hurt, you got to have a backup plan. So I think you're going to see another quarterback. Offensive line obviously has to be completely rebuilt in the 2 deep. And then the secondary, I mean, Gene, we could have a whole episode on that. I mean, as bad as that unit was, yeah, you're probably going to have at least 6 to 7 guys populating that room that you're not used to seeing. So there's going to be a lot of new names coming in. We're going to highlight all of them over the course of the next couple of weeks and months. as we lead up into spring ball. But that's going to do it for us today on this episode of Between the Ears. For Eugene, Napoleon, I'm Schuyler Callihan. Thank you guys for watching. Merry Christmas. Have a happy new year. We'll be back on Sunday for the next episode here of Between the Ears.